Now, we're going to talk a little bit about pharmacology. Pharmacology, of course, is a most fascinating, I suggest, area of science for a person who handles OUI. And pharmacology, before I became a DUI attorney, is I thought pharmacology is what the pharmacologist did at the Giant, and filled my prescriptions and stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is that it is absolutely fascinating. If you have a good pharmacologist that you can call who's honest and is up on the literature, then you can do a lot of great things in a DUI case or OUI case. What is the number one question asked? The number one question that's asked is the blood drug level at the time of the crash or the stop. What is it? That's the big one that they always preoccupy, DAs always preoccupy with. And here is a 100% empirical fact statement that there is not a pharmacologist, there isn't a toxicologist in the world, or anyone who has any sort of honesty whatsoever will disagree with. And the statement is this: in a DUI-D case, as opposed to a DUI alcohol case, the state would need at least 7 blood draws at timed intervals, meaning sequentially, one right after another, in order to make any scientifically reliable opinion as to the blood level of any drug at the time of the crash or stop. Lots of words there, and I'm going to prove it to you very quickly. But in order to do that, what you have to understand is a little bit of pharmacology. Pharmacology, and specifically the difference between alcohol, which is what's called a zero-order kinetic, and everything else. Demonstrate it in 2 slides. But the most important thing is you take a look, and we talked about Melendez-Diaz and the piece of paper and this old cartoon here, and it says, "This is not a kangaroo court." A piece of paper does not make a person guilty. Of course it doesn't. What we need to do is it needs to be equated back to impairment. A blood drug level by itself predicts the pharmacological effect and impairment of drugs. That is 100% false. You will get experts from the state who come forward, and this is their mantra. I can tell by the magic number that the person was definitely impaired. Malarkey, hooey, bullshit, okay? That's not true. It is not possible to predict the pharmacologic effect of any drug based on blood drug level alone. Much more corroborating information is required. The best information, the best way, if you really wanted to prove a DUI-D case, what you would do is you get someone with past history who knows this person. Maybe they're a treating physician or something like that. And someone who's knowledgeable in the experience of pharmacologic effects of drugs in question, the medical history of the person involved, and other relevant circumstances versus, closed head trauma versus chronic disease, individual baseline functioning, meaning how the person can perform normally, other medications, single dose versus multiple dosing in maintenance programs, which we'll talk about here. The most variable factor regarding a drug's effect on a person is their individual biologic response to the drug. Tolerance, okay? Tolerance is one of the elements of variability. A person with increased tolerance may require a therapeutic blood drug level that would be lethal for someone else. So in other words, if you're taking a drug that you've been taking for years, and you take that same amount and you give it to someone who's never had it before, it could very well kill them. And that is the problem that prosecutors are going to have in these DUI-D cases. Pharmacology. Pharmacology is the study of drug action. More specifically, it is the study of interactions that occur between a living organism and exogenous chemicals that are normal biomechanical function. Exogenous means outside the body. Anything you put inside the body, pill, apple juice, anything like that. And I only have 4 slides of hardcore science, and here they come. Okay, so I'm warning you ahead of time. Okay, please stick with me because this is going to be important, and I think you're going to see at the end here why. Dose-response curve. A dose-response curve is the technical name for basically what we all know. And what we have to do is I'm going to take you through the example of alcohol, because we kind of know, or we should know, the way that the dose-response curve is alcohol to prove this point. Now, what we have here is BAC on one axis in time. It's the drink that you have over the period of time and how it comes through your system, the pharmacology that's involved with it. That's basically a standard dose curve, as we probably already know. Now, the way that you can think of it is when a zero-order kinetic with alcohol, it is a standard drop-off that goes kind of like this. And that's why we can do what we call before retrograde extrapolation. Come to that in 1 minute. So what is alcohol metabolism about? The first part, when you start drinking, is the absorption. It's your body absorbing it, coming in. As a result, as it's not in your system, your BAC is not high enough. And then there's the top or the peak. After that starts the elimination. So, absorption with alcohol is on basically, the way I like to think about it, the way I explain it to jurors, is like a bucket. Your body is a bucket. And what you do is when you're adding beer, what you're doing is you're adding to the bucket, and you're filling up the bucket. That's the absorption. So what happens is, now this is very generalized. Of course, a lot of different other factors play into it, but a standard drink is what we call it in the scientific community, adds about a 0.02 per standard drink. 4, 6, and 8. But it's a little bit more complicated than that, because as your body is absorbing, it is also eliminating. So we take a look at this with our bucket analogy, and it's kind of like this. As you drink, it goes up, then you hit the peak, and then what happens after that is it eliminates and it goes out. Pretty simple, right? We didn't need all the fancy PowerPoint in order to understand that. But the bottom line of it is, elimination is basically like there's holes in the bucket. As you're trying to fill it, you're also emptying it. So as long as you are drinking at a pace greater than your elimination, BAC goes up. Pretty simple. But over time, if you don't drink, the leaky bucket is going to leak it out, and it's over a period of time, it's going to come away. That's what we call zero-order kinetics. And the reason why I spent the time, and because I only have a little bit of time to talk to you good folks, is to understand the difference, the important difference between alcohol and drugs. Alcohol, you can, under the certain circumstances, if there's enough evidence, do what's called retrograde extrapolation, which is backwards guessing what the person's BAC was at the time of their driving, as we probably know. But you have to assume that the person's in the post-absorptive phase, meaning that they've already peaked, they're on their way eliminating. And generally speaking, over 1 hour, again, very generally speaking, it's about a 0.015. And that's because it's a zero-order kinetic. That means that it's eliminating at the same general rate throughout the entire course of time, except for when you get down to this hockey puck area. But that's basically what's involved with it. Now, this is to be totally contrasted with drugs. You cannot do retrograde extrapolation with a drug case. If you have someone coming on the stand that says, I can do retrograde extrapolation with drugs, you're going to have a field day. I'm going to show you how.